I think the urban and rural spheres are actually super symbiotic, and we need each other. Rural needs urban, urban needs rural. Like what we have to offer urban space is not just our resources, it's not just water and timber and food. And so urban and rural, we're not close to each other. In this state, we think of the East as the Dalles, or we think of East as like, oh, you're headed to Bend. And yes, that is east of urban, but there's an entire world out there, and people live in that world and create resources that run our city centers. I live in a really small town called ALF Oregon. We have about 250 people in town. We call it town. We have about 580 people living in the valley. It's funny, when you move into a rural place, if you wave at everybody and you're cordial, you're gonna make friends. It's just gonna happen because there's so few of us and we all need each other out there. But we're a different kind of family. We live really outside the box. I'm an artist. I have a son who has what they would consider a lot of disability to manage. And then I have a son who's gender fluid and is trying to explore like what that means for them. And rural Oregon has been a surprise in every way. As a rural person who's decided to now live out the rest of my life rurally, I really wanted to better understand my own community, and I didn't think I could do that unless I understood the history of the state and the people who made it. ALF is like this perfect collaboration dream that I didn't know existed. So when I learned about ALF and I realized they were bringing leaders and community organizers from all over the state to talk about some of the biggest issues facing our state, I wanted to be a part of it. The ALF cohort is a wildly diverse group, and nobody thinks the same, nobody has been raised the same, and we're all looking for elegant, people-powered solutions. And I'm really interested in understanding why they see what they see, why they feel what they feel, why they think what they think. ALF is a laboratory space where we get to practice and try out courageous conversation in real time. And I think the binary of you're either learning and you don't know what you're talking about, or you have mastered it and you've arrived, that binary isn't really conducive for the courageous conversation it's going to take to heal some of the really big divides in our state. It's funny because the state of Oregon is a microcosm for what's happening in our nation. Like if you want to know what's happening in terms of the urban-rural divide, what we think of as real America, we hear this all the time from our politicians. And when they say real America, they're talking about rural America, which is funny because there's so few of us in rural America and most of us are in the city centers. But I think the conversation right now is so binary, there's no way to come back from it. If you continue to polarize and polarize and polarize, then what we do is we dehumanize each other. And if we're doing that, then we can't possibly do the work that lies ahead of us in terms of the future we want to create in our state. And so I would like to think of ALF as a place where intimacy is happening and where closeness is happening. Because once you're close to someone, you start caring about them. And if you care about them, you'll take risks for them. And if you take risks for somebody, now you're in a co-conspiratorial relationship where you're actually changing the way people think, feel, see, and use resources. I will say one of the biggest barriers for rural folk being a part of ALF is actually just proximity. I've put more miles on my car than I put on it in 6 years prior to do ALF. I'm really grateful that ALF had a full scholarship available. I mean, I'm a woman living in rural Oregon under the poverty line, raising a child with disabilities, and I have a partner who doesn't work. So just from a practical level, this isn't possible unless there's a donor base that thinks that that is an important conversation to have. I'm so grateful to meet heart-centered people who are asking the right questions about who we want to be as a state as we move into the future. Because right now, nothing is promised, but relationship is where it's going to happen. And ALF seems to be doing that really beautifully.